1-9, Roger.
Roger, mate.
Thanks, buddy, where are you?
Yeah, mate, I'm in Nottingham Lane, they're Potsdam.
Ah, you've got Steve Saxon here, mate.
Where, Shafted?
Ah, Steve Saxon, Roger.
Yeah, Roger, mate, I'm in Nottingham Lane, they're very brief for Potsdam. It's fucking year 2016 off the fucking, 1800.
That's Pat Chapman at back at box. Pat Chapman at back at box, who'd have thought that, So I've still got it, guys. I can still watch CB and get out to people. It's brilliant, isn't it? I can't be asked to get dressed today. I've only been up a few hours and I just thought, stuff it, what's the point of getting dressed? Now today, as I promised at the end of the last episode, we're going to be talking about handheld scanners. Now I've got my handheld scanner here, and but the question on everybody's lips is, are they any good anymore? You know, what are you going to get if you've got one of these handheld scanners? Well, let's find out. Right, so the first scanner we've got here is a Realistic Pro... oh, hold on, I can't see what it bloody says. Hold on. Just clean me bloody glasses. Realistic Pro 39 Hyperscan. Right, and this it's a 200 channel programmable scanner, and it covers from 68 megahertz up to 960. Now it sounds like a big vast range of frequencies, but in actual fact, what have you got left to listen on that frequency band? Let's find out. So between 68 and 87 megahertz, you used to be able to have things like the fire brigade, the water companies, the utility companies, the MOD, and there's also a radio AM band down there. But to be honest, I've not heard anything in that range for absolutely decades now. From 87 megahertz to 108 megahertz lies the broadcast band for radio. That's where you listen to your Radio 2, Radio 3, Radio 1, and all your commercial stations. Now this scanner doesn't cover it because it's crap. And instead of covering it, it has what's known in the scanner community as a gap, which means that it just jumps over it and basically goes to the next allocated range of frequencies. So after the gap of the broadcast band, we've then got what's known as the aircraft band, which officially runs between 108 and 138 megahertz in the AM spectrum. And you generally find the air towers and the air traffic is sort of at the lower end, and the air traffic control and the airlines are at the higher end of that frequency allocation. And obviously, once we've gone above the air band, we start coming towards 2 meters, and we're in VHF, and obviously we've got the radio AM bands in 2 meters, and then above that, we're going to be looking at PMRs and basically companies and utility companies, taxis, things like that, all that in the VHF spectrum is capable of getting received on a scanner like this. We then have another massive gap as the radio changes from VHF to UHF. It skips over a massive chunk of the spectrum which is mainly used for military aircraft transmissions, and then we pick up again in somewhere in the UHF range around about 430 megahertz, which coincidentally coincides with roughly where 70 centimeters is. So we then have the ham bands, and then we go up to 512. Across there we cover some more UHF utility services, pub watch, shop watch, all them kind of things, although most are going digital now. And then the band stops again and we go into the old analogue television band at 500 odd meg. Again, a scanner like this with gaps, it will jump over that, and then we pick it up again for the microwave frequencies up at 900 odd megahertz. Now, back in the days of old, up at 900 odd megahertz used to be a lot of mobile phones before they went digital. So it was brilliant. You know, back in the day, these things were absolutely brilliant, but nothing to hear on them at all now, hardly. This particular scanner will cover from 25 megahertz to 1.3 megahertz, and as far as I'm aware it has very few gaps, so we've got a lot of general coverage packed into this, and the ability to manually shift between AM and wideband and narrowband FM modes. Back in its day, this really was a cream of the crop type of scanner. Now 20 years ago, back in 1996, well, when I got this scanner, and I'll tell you something, back then it was absolutely amazing. You know, you could listen to police, you could listen to mobile phones, cordless phones, you could listen to everything. Basically everything you ever wanted to listen to was accessible via a device like this. But as the times changed, more and more things became digital, more and more things became encrypted, we seemed to lose as emergency services, and now we're in 2016 and the only things you can really listen to on a scanner nowadays are aircraft communications. You can still get the odd taxi, you can still get the odd company, but to be honest, all the juicy stuff has all been took away, digitalised or encoded in some way. There's a possibility that you might pick up some cordless phones down in the 31 megahertz, but to be honest, these phones for a long time now have become obsolete, and they've all been replaced by digitally encoded cordless telephones, which you can't pick up on any type of scanner. Now, I'm down here in the doldrums of my garage. We're pretty much at ground level down here, and I could have this scanner on, and it's not going to pick much up. But to be honest, I could put myself at the top of a really, really high mountain, and it's still not going to pick much up, because there's nothing transmitting, and if there's nothing transmitting, there's nothing to receive. Don't get me wrong, I could listen to taxis, and I could listen to aircraft, but to be honest, I'd rather watch bloody paint dry. Traditionally, most scanners will come with a BNC rubber duck antenna like this, which are okay, and they're kind of generally suited for general purpose scanning work, but to be honest, I'd much rather use a telescopic antenna, and the reason is why is because there's no loading coil. We can actually extend the length of the antenna and actually make it a much more better receiver than what you'll get just out of a little rubber duck. Let's talk about the legality of the handheld scanner. They've often been frowned upon for decades as being illegal, but the scanner itself is not actually illegal. It's the frequencies that you listen to that are illegal. For example, I'm well within my right to buy this, to listen to CB, AM radio, public radio, broadcast radio, anything that's got a public intendable audience is perfectly fine and legal to listen to on a device like this. Anything that could be described as sensitive, basically everything else from companies, taxis, aircraft, emergency services, you name it, is all unauthorised listening prohibited, so you will be breaking the law if you're caught listening to frequencies like them. Unfortunately, nobody's ever given a shit, and we've all continued just to listen to just about anything that we can find on these magnificent devices.
Box departure. Lovely Tango, our altitude is 2,350. Best thing.
On the ILS approach, scan 470 momentum course, clear the ILS approach.
I've got a wealth of UHF and VHF frequencies stored in here, but as you've just heard, practically 99% of everything that'll come out of this is aircraft, because they're just about the only things that's guaranteed to be picked up on these nowadays. They're up there in the sky, so the signals can transmit for absolutely miles, and there's millions of them. There's always thousands of planes in sky. We live in a society where at any given time, there's probably 10,000 planes flying around in the air, so you're always going to be able to listen to something like that. But I'm afraid that's really where the buck lies. But before you go throwing your scanner away thinking that it's no good, you can also have a lot of fun with it. Especially if you've got an extra device like this which can transmit on quite a lot of frequencies that the scanner can receive on. It makes for excellent mischief, as I'm going to demonstrate now. I carried out a prank on my mother, old lady Saxon, where I set this scanner to a particular frequency and hid it behind the settee. I then used this to transmit on that frequency and pretended to be the voice of her late husband, just to see how well she'd get freaked out.
24 across. So egg on.
Vera.
Yes?
Vera.
Yes?
This is your late husband, Reg.
Reg? What?
This is your late husband, Reg. You'll be going to the bingo and I ain't up early. I don't like it.
Who's in it? Who's in it?
So there you go, you can still have plenty of fun with these things. Hope you enjoyed today's show. On the next show, we're going to be discussing amateur radio in great depth, so any radio hams or potential radio hams might want to tune in for the next episode. This is Steve Saxon CB Show from Meet the Breakers, signing off.